Welcome to the Tough Decisions Network for Entrepreneurs. I'm Dan Hanford, and my wife, Danae, and I interview successful people sharing stories behind tough decisions that they've had to make along their journey as an entrepreneur. Before we get started, let's hear from one of our sponsors. Have you ever thought about investing in real estate, but find yourself so busy that you don't have time for it? Do you have FOMO, which is the fear of missing out? At HanfordCapital.com, we help investors with passive real estate investments that project better returns than traditional investment vehicles such as the stock market. If you'd like to find out more about our passive real estate investments, visit HanfordCapital.com. That's HANDFORD Capital.com. We will jump on a call with you to discuss your investment goals and to see if our investments are a good fit for you. This advertisement is not to be construed as an offer or recommendation to buy or sell a security. Visit HanfordCapital.com. On the podcast with us today is Adam Toporek. He is an internationally recognized customer experience expert, keynote speaker, and a customer service trainer who helps organizations transform their relationships with their customers through better strategy, training, and communication. Adam, welcome to the podcast. Looking forward to our interview today.
Oh, thanks so much, Dan. Danae, I appreciate y'all having me.
Well, Adam, I want you to talk to us a little bit about what your current focus is right now as an entrepreneur.
Okay, so I have my own business, CTS Service Solutions, and I am a customer experience and customer service speaker, author, consultant, trainer, all of that good stuff. So I have a business dedicated to helping companies and organizations improve their customer experience.
And Adam, I like to start off the podcast with, a tough decision that you made that, maybe didn't have the best outcome. I like to call it like the sore thumb, tough decision, where it's a tough decision that you made. You learned a lot of lessons from it, but you kind of look back at it and go, yeah, that really wasn't the best decision.
Absolutely. And I'm a third generation entrepreneur, so I have a lot of sore thumbs. I have more sore thumbs than I have thumbs, unfortunately. But one that's sort of in context with what we just spoke about, which is what I'm doing now, is I had successful retail businesses, franchise businesses, and I started blogging on the side of that. That's really how this whole journey began. And that was 2011, I believe. And I basically started blogging about what I thought people would think I was credible in, which was small business and entrepreneurship and franchising. And I realized as I was starting, and it was fine and the content was good, but I didn't want to do it. Every time I sat down at the keyboard to write, I really just wasn't inspired. And I kept writing about customer experience and I kept writing about customer service. And I have a bachelor's in business, I have a master's in business. So I've been exposed to all areas of business, and being an entrepreneur, of course, you're, the chief everything officer, right? But it was customer experience. So it was always driving me, that I always found to be the most important part of business and the thing that I like to focus on, the thing I had the most affinity for. So after about 6 months, I did a hard reset, which, being new to blogging, you're trying to establish yourself. People are getting to know you. You've got this name that you're trying to build. And then you've just got to go, you know what? I got to stop. I got to change this to what it's supposed to be. So about 6 months in, I did a complete reset.
And was it because you didn't like writing, or you didn't like the topic you were writing about?
I wasn't passionate about the topic, and I knew I was doing it for the wrong reasons. I was doing it because, okay, well, I'm in franchising, so I should write about franchising. That's where people are going to find me to be credible, right? Or, come from entrepreneurship, so I want to write about small business. And I'd done it for the wrong reasons, as opposed to really what I found to be what I'm passionate about. And I'm not saying follow your passion, because if your passion is, comparative German literature, there may not be a market for that you want, right? I mean, follow your passion can be very dangerous advice. But within the context of providing content for business, what I was passionate about was really customer experience, customer service. It's also where I just saw everything moving, saw how important it was. So I literally did a 180. I wrote a blog post like, we're changing this blog. We're changing everything we're writing about. We're changing our focus. I changed the URL, everything. And that was a tough decision. It's probably a bigger deal internally than it really is externally. Especially with a new company. I mean, I guess if FedEx decided they wanted to get into the hamburger business next week, that'd be a big deal. right? I mean, there's some resets that are more dramatic than others.
Well, I think you've opened up a can of worms in my brain, Adam, because where I'm actually going right now in my head is the topic that you talked about finding your passion and doing that, because a lot of people don't talk about that side of it that you brought up, where you don't necessarily want to always follow your passion. Now, I think that if you can find a passion that can be a product or a service or something that you could monetize and that there is a market for, then that is definitely something that you should follow with. That's one of your passions. And I think for you, your passion just aligned really well with having a market there for your service.
Well, 100%. There's an old article, I can't remember, I think it was on Entrepreneurs, years old. It's called Do What You Love and Starve. Okay. And it has to, which is terrible. I know this goes against a lot of the advice, but I truly believe in this, which is if what you want to do is something that everybody wants to do and there are no barriers to entry to it, such as acting, where there are a few winners, if you want to be rich and famous and all that kind of stuff, where there are a few winners at the top, and then really not a lot of winners at the bottom and a lot of people that aren't making it doing it. Well, that's a do what you love and starve kind of situation. If what you want to do is tax accounting, right? If your passion is tax accounting and your passion is acting, you have two very different economic prospects in front of you. Right. Unfortunately, most of us, our passions are guitar playing or, things like this. So I think it's finding your passion and finding your market, to your point, Dan, right? Finding something that has market value that people are going to want, or saying that I don't mind living in a van and I don't mind doing what I need to do because I'm going to make it and I'm going to do that. But a lot of people don't want to pay that price, especially for the uncertain results. Hopefully I'm not being a downer for anybody following their passion.
Well, I was just going to say, I love the practicality of what you're talking about here, because I think, or at least I feel like sometimes, entrepreneurs and even some entrepreneur coaches, they can get a little bit lost in the clouds, of you have this great idea or this is what you want to do. And yet, good luck actually making a living. And that's not to say that no one ever would do that, because there are people that are successful doing, from the very beginning, their first idea. But in kind of relation to the blog post you were talking about, that franchising wasn't your passion, but yet you were also able to shift and find the niche that you were excited about, but there was also a demand. So, and we've talked about this before, where you have to have an idea, but plus you also have to have a customer for the idea or someone who's in demand of that idea.
Well, 100%. And it's not to be dismissive of people following their passion. I come from music. So I went to Berkeley for a year, played guitar. There are other ways I could have stayed in music other than, trying to be the next Jimmy Page, right? I'm dating myself how old I am, but right. Other than being the next guitar, there's ways you can do it. You can do film scoring. There's a lot of things you can do. So to your point, Danae, if you can look for where the market is, you can look for the opportunities. But I think there's so much sort of pie in the sky self-help advice out there. And have you all ever heard of survivorship bias?
I have not.
No.
Okay, well, yeah, it's cool. It's a neat concept, so it fits right in. So survivorship bias is we tell the stories about the people who succeed, right? Mm-hmm. We don't tell the stories about the 1,000 people who didn't make it. So survivorship bias is we tell the story about the person who, the Sylvester Stallone, who shopped his script for 15 years, insisted that he be the actor, and finally Rocky was made, and now he's Sylvester Stallone and Rocky's Rocky, and it's all amazing. But we don't hear the story about the 1,000 other people that did that and are selling real estate and doing other different things and aren't Sylvester Stallone, right? So there's a tendency in the self-help industries and all these industries to talk about the survivors and not to look at the percentages and the numbers. And I think it's important to look at both to see what can be done and also to see what the odds are of achieving it.
When you did switch gears with your blog and you found that topic that you were passionate about, and there was it kind of a sudden thing where you noticed a big difference, or did it sort of happen over time as something that you gradually, okay, I can do this, I'm good at this, I'm an expert? You were obviously already the customer service expert, but did you notice a shift in energy and following sort of right away, or is that something that took some time?
Oh, a little bit of both, I think. On the personal side, and that's a really interesting question, because on the personal side, there was a definite shift in energy. Like I felt like I had a purpose, I had a direction. And you know how that is. When you have clarity, you're a lot more motivated, right? You're a lot more inspired to act. So on the personal side, on the other side, I was new and growing a blog. So that takes time no matter what you do. I mean, there's a survivor bias, right? There's always a blog that just catches fire immediately. But, that's a grind. That's producing content regularly over time. But I saw the content resonate more earlier, I think. So I think I saw a shift, but it wasn't seismic.
Talk to us a little bit about a decision that you made in your experience that did have a positive outcome, or maybe even a better outcome than you anticipated because of the difficulty of the decision.
Well, that's what I'm doing now. And that is, as I mentioned, speaker, author, consultant, customer experience. And that blog was part of a slow process, but it ended up culminating in a very big life decision. So the blog, I started talking about customer experience, published a book, but all the while I had a day job, so to speak. I owned a retail business. I was a franchise developer, and I had very successful businesses. And back in 2017, I made the jump last year. So I made the jump to basically put all that aside, to sell those businesses and to move into something that's a lot less sure, which there are very few barriers to entry to, as far as, anybody can say, hey, I'm an expert, I'm a speaker, I'm an author, right? Whatever. The barriers to entry to doing that are not very high. So there's a lot of competition now. And so that was a very big decision. And I think that, I know it's a typical entrepreneur decision. People face this all the time. When do I give up the paycheck? Maybe they don't own businesses. A lot of them are employed for other people. When do I give up the security of what I'm doing now and commit fully to my vision, to my entrepreneurial goals, to what I want to do? And that was the big decision, and I'm living it right now.
So was there a definite point in time when you realized, okay, I'm ready, the demand is there, I've got things in place, and you knew for sure that this was the time? Or was it something where you just said, I've got to do this. If it's going to get done, we got to go ahead and make the jump. And there was still some uncertainty there.
Well, there's definitely uncertainty, but it's more the former, which is, it was definitely a thought out decision. It was definitely the good news, the businesses I was in weren't businesses I could just, shut down. I mean, I had to sell them. I had employees, so there was a process involved in that forced a slow timeline upon me. But it was absolutely looking at it from a perspective of when is a good point to jump. And the first thing you learn is there is never a good point to jump. Okay. If you're making money and you're doing well and the thing you're jumping into doesn't make money and, and is new, you're never going to have sort of the ducks aligned where you go, oh, wow, this is the time. Unless you've built up the other business where like, okay, I see the replacement income's there. I see that's there. So the question is, when is it smart to jump? And I really just looked at it from the standpoint of pros and cons. I had some pros, it working in my favor. I had some cons, which are the nature of the business. One, if you go into this business, right, keynote speaking, things like that, if you're not a celebrity, if Tom Brady wants to become a keynote speaker tomorrow, he's going to be, getting 5-figure fees immediately, maybe 6-figure fees, right? Because he's Tom Brady. But if you're Adam Toporek, you're just going to have to go in and start building your book of business. The other thing is, I know this is an industry that's economically sensitive. And we all know sort of what's going on now with the equity markets, and eventually that, I think the equity markets are writing checks that the economy can't cash. So that's going to all sort of, those chickens all have to come home to roost eventually. And this is an industry that tends to be very economically sensitive. People stop paying big fees for speakers, things like that, when the economy goes down. So those are all the cons. The pros were, I had built the base, right? I'd done the blog that we talked about for years. I had already had a book out while I was still running my other businesses. And also, which was really good, I was able to sell successful businesses. So I wasn't coming at it. I know you and your audience will absolutely relate to this. The difference between starting a business with a starvation mentality and a strategic mentality. And I was able to start the business with a strategic mentality. And maybe that probably puts a fine point on your question, Danae, which is that was when I really felt like that I could jump, when I could go into the business and be strategic and not have a starvation kind of sort of mindset.
Adam, share with us what you like to do when you face one of these types of tough decisions.
Absolutely. One of the things I'm really big in with what I teach with customer experience and customer service is neuroscience and psychology. And you've heard of cognitive biases, I'm sure, confirmation bias, things like that. And when I face these tough decisions, I really look at some of those big biases and do something I call bias stripping, which is I take the biases I know really tend to impact me or impact anybody when they make a decision. And I say, okay, how could this be affecting me now? And how can I get rid of that? So you take something like confirmation bias. We look for the evidence that supports what we believe, and we tend to discount the factors we don't want to hear. Now, that's a big thing when you're deciding to launch a business or make a big decision, because if it's something you want, then deep down you want it, right? You're looking for the evidence that's going to tell you it's a good idea. And if you want to be analytical about it and you want to really approach it as a business decision, you've got to try to strip out those personal biases, those cognitive biases, and look at it as objectively as possible. Now, we can never be 100% objective, but we can be cognizant of the biases that, the errors in judgment we have, and try to account for them when we're making decisions.
Adam, can you share with our audience maybe a book or a resource that you'd recommend as far as reading goes that's affected the way that you make decisions or the way that you run your multiple businesses?
Absolutely. So I'd say one of the most impactful books I've read in the last couple of years is called Deep Work by Cal Newport. That's Deep Work. I don't know if that sounds right. And it is all about how to focus in this age we live in today. And not only how to focus, but the importance of focus time. And we live in an age where the entire world is always tugging and pulling out our attention, right? We're at this, I call it a war with distraction. We're literally at war with distraction, trying to gain focus. And for entrepreneurs, investors, anybody like us, we need time to just sit and think, to put quality time into, what's the old expression, like working on your business instead of in your business, that type of thing. And this book really breaks down why it's important, uses a lot of good case studies, and how you can get more focused time in your life to focus on strategy as opposed to reaction.
I want to shift gears here just a little bit. I actually want to talk a little bit about what you've done with some of the money that you've made up to this point as an entrepreneur. You've got a lot of experience, a wealth of knowledge, and I'd love to be able to know what has been the most exciting thing that you have done with it. Have you traveled somewhere exotic or purchased a crazy item? What have you done with the money that you've made so far?
I had a trouble with this question, I have to say, because I didn't do anything exciting. I did something not exciting like that. Like I didn't go skydiving. I didn't go to Bora Bora, but it was super exciting for me because it was a life goal and I did it. I paid off my house.
That's exciting.
I know it's sort of boring, but yeah, when you frame it as like, where'd you go? What'd you do? I'm like, I didn't do anything fun like that. I mean, we did like a vacation or something, but it was nothing special, nothing that's going to be like, oh, wow, that was cool. But yeah, we paid off our house. So we are officially completely 100% debt free.
And that is a great position to be in.
Oh my, yeah, it is the best. Honestly, there's no vacation. There's no any kind of, crazy thing we could have done that would have felt as good for as long as doing that.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you have another item that is on your bucket list or that's on your vision board right now that you want to be able to accomplish?
Yeah, I'd actually like to start playing music again. So I've played in a few bands over the years, but it has been 15 years or something.
Are you any good at it?
Somebody used to ask me if I'm any good on guitar. I said, it depends who I'm sitting next to. Yeah, I mean, I went to Berkeley for a year and I'm not a slouch or anything, but I've seen some of the best. There's a lot of really talented guitar players. And now that there's YouTube, there's a lot of really talented 8-year-old guitar players. So, just if you're a guitar player or a musician of any type, never go on YouTube. That's my advice.
That's very true. Well, Adam, I really do appreciate you coming on the podcast with us today and sharing some of your insights. Would you share with the listeners how they can reach out to you and get some more information from you if they want to start to follow you some more?
Absolutely. And thank you, Dan and Danae, for having me. I love this discussion. This was really fun. You can reach me. My home base is customersthatstick.com. That's where you can reach me. I love to connect with anybody. I'm all over social, Adam Toporek. And feel free to check out another website we have called howtodealwithdifficultcustomers.com.
And we'll also add all those links to you in our show notes, which can be found at toughdecisions.net and just searching for this podcast, Adam Toporek. Thank you so much once again, Adam. Look forward to having you on a future podcast as you continue to grow as an entrepreneur.
Oh, thank you so much. Really appreciate it, Dan. Awesome time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to the Tough Decisions Network. Be sure to visit toughdecisions.net to gain access to show notes for this episode and to join our free weekly entrepreneur email where we will send you news about the latest technology for your business, inspiring quotes, and the latest books for entrepreneurs. That's toughdecisions.net.